One of the most consequential pairing of words in modern culture is cultural conditioning. It really kind of explains where American culture is, where the global culture is, and literally how we got here, right? So when we think of conditioning, let's start with conditioning. I think the easiest way to explain this is everybody's favorite karate teacher, Mr. Miyagi, right? So Mr. Miyagi famously taught young Daniel LaRusso of Fresno, California, how to fight. But he did so in very annoying ways. When he began, Daniel didn't really like Mr. Miyagi. All great teachers are first disliked. They don't love bomb their students. They don't pull their students in by whispering flowery nothings into their ear and convincing them of lies. They teach them that the truth is hard and that I know more than you do, and I'm going to teach you lessons both by showing and telling, right? So what he does is he has him wax his car and paint his fence, right? So wax the car, paint the fence. So the conscious message is you're being taught to wax the car and paint the fence, right? So he thinks, wow, what a fucking asshole. I came here to fight. He's got me doing chores, right? That's the content of the teachings. The form is the fighting, right? The subconscious messaging. Now form and content and conscious and subconscious can get jumbled up, but like what he's done is conditioned him to be a fighter. Now imagine like Mr. Miyagi didn't ever tell Daniel what he had done, and Daniel kind of just went away angry, but then knew how to fight. Now obviously there were some other components Mr. Miyagi would have to teach him, but Daniel would just say, oh, well that's just in my nature. So in this little parable of Daniel LaRusso and Mr. Miyagi, you see the kind of fallacy of nature versus nurture in a lot of cases. I mean, for us, nature is like pissing and shitting and like, you know, digesting food. There are human nature, right? But nurture is both the conscious and the subconscious conditioning. So we see like there's so much of our personality, of our behavior that we kind of dismiss as just, our nature, but it's actually conditioning. So how does this relate to the modern era? Well, obviously television and the internet and literally all of these forces that are conditioning us through culture. Take what I just said about Mr. Miyagi, where you have the form of the lesson and then the content, so and apply that to multiple choice questions, right? So with multiple choice questions, you have a student engaging with information. This is all about engagement with information. So they're engaging with the information they're engaging with. So they're being taught directly whatever it is the data that they're being asked to choose from, right? But they're also being taught by the form of the way they're engaging with the data, which is to say they're being given a prepackaged choice of answers, and all they have to do is pick one, right? So they don't really have to engage with the information at all. And American education has devolved into literally just teaching them that tiny snippet of information they need to pass the test, right? But what that's conditioning them for is the way they relate to information, which is to say they just look at a prepackaged list of choices and choose with no actual intellectual engagement, and then they die on the hill of whatever choice they made. It's not a huge leap to take this and see how the internet has kind of taken this and created the modern reality where people are just literally choosing through the prism of tribalism, racism, nationalism, all sorts of kind of random and not so random metrics, but they're just picking information out. They're not engaging with it. It's tribalism, red or blue, white or black, Johnny or Amber. And you can see very clearly the way that our education system is conditioning everybody for this anti intellectual kind of dark ages that we have right now. The conditioning has led us to that, right? Like, I mean, I would maintain that we've actually entered a neo dark ages already. That just like the dark ages part one, which was led by religion, which was supposedly kind of this agent of illumination and knowledge, but was really just social control, it led to kind of a recession in the kind of pursuit of truth that we've never actually really gotten out of. But the internet has functioned kind of the same way, where we thought it was going to kind of connect us and illuminate all this truth. And it has connected us, but it's connected us through lies largely and through bullshit. And it's ushered in kind of this cultural battle between truth and lies that we call politics. I mean, this is largely part of the conditioning, reflecting itself in the online space, which is what I just said. When we make political about truth and one side is telling the truth and one side is lying, what we do is condition everybody to just not see truth anymore, to act on feelings. And so much of what we're doing is about not understanding the kind of what the fighting component, the subconscious messaging. So I'm going to kind of like work on getting a little bit better at talking for a longer time. You know, it's hard because I do stream of consciousness stuff. So going from 3 minutes to a more open format and not wanting to have to stop and edit and string stuff together means I'm a little intimidated. But the only way to do that is kind of condition myself to speak longer. I mean, that's another theory I have, is that like social media has conditioned our brain to think in these small little kind of Facebook, Twitter thoughts, right? And I've been saying, like, I've had to do mental gymnastics to stretch my thoughts out, like through meditation. And then I read this quote of Bob Dylan kind of saying almost the same thing about the malleability of thought and the kind of length of thought and how we're conditioned. You know, I think he was talking about being conditioned to the 3-4 minute radio format or something for songwriting, right? You know, think of the way Facebook, for instance, has conditioned us for 10 years or 15 years or whatever, and Twitter, of thinking in these kind of gotcha, combative, very limited number of character thoughts, and what that's done to human consciousness. I mean, so I'm going to end on this fact that the internet, right, and the online space largely came at a time where we were just beginning to kind of comprehend and deal with the way the television had conditioned us in unexpected ways and kind of collateral damage for our mental health. And the internet just exploded that. The internet is conditioning, I mean, comment sections, like the form and the content, is conditioning us in all sorts of ways, none of them good, because the internet was rolled out. When they tell the story, they're going to say this. The main problem with rolling out the internet was it was done for profit motive and engagement instead of mental health and accuracy. And it's conditioned us for this kind of nightmare existence of competing realities that we're living in now. So the beginning steps of finding our way out of this maze is understanding how we got here, and understanding that there's, you know, these two forms of messaging and learning going on at all times, the conscious and the subconscious, right? And we need to start getting our handle on the subconscious conditioning of the culture.